April 29th, 1992, 3:17 in the afternoon. A shop owner on Western Avenue is watching a small television behind his counter. The screen shows 4 officers being acquitted. He already knows what that verdict means for his block, not because he is psychic, because he has been paying attention. By 6 p.m., the smoke is visible from the roof. By 8 p.m., the LAPD has effectively abandoned Koreatown. Dispatch logs from that night document officers being redirected, response times stretching past an hour, entire precincts essentially drawing a perimeter around neighborhoods they had already decided were lost. You would have called 911. You would have waited. Most people did. And most people watched their businesses burn while they waited. What happened next is where this gets instructive. The Korean-American merchant networks in Koreatown did not wait. They activated something that already existed, a web of church contacts, merchant association phone trees, CB radio channels, and neighborhood relationships built over years of operating in close proximity. Within hours, coordinated groups were organizing roof positions, establishing sight lines, sharing real-time information about where the fires were moving and where police were not. The image that became a cultural shorthand, Korean shop owners on rooftops with rifles, is not wrong, but it is incomplete in a way that costs you the entire lesson. The gun was not the variable. The network was the variable. Here is the documented arithmetic. And I will not round these numbers for effect, because the real numbers are already damning enough. The 1992 Los Angeles riots resulted in approximately 2,300 businesses destroyed and property losses exceeding $1 billion. Korean-American businesses, despite representing a fraction of the total business population in the affected areas, absorbed somewhere between 45 and 50% of total losses. That disparity alone should stop you cold. But the more instructive number is the one almost nobody talks about. The difference in outcomes between Korean businesses that had pre-existing mutual aid relationships and those that operated in isolation. Businesses with established merchant association ties, with existing communication lines into their community networks, with neighbors who had already agreed on protocols. Those businesses had people on rooftops. Those businesses, in many documented cases, were passed over. Not because the rifle on the roof was a magic talisman, because the social infrastructure that put someone on that roof also meant that 3 other people knew where that person was, could communicate status in real time, and could redirect resources if a situation changed. The isolated shop owner with the same firearm and zero network did not fare the same way. Isolation is a force multiplier for the wrong side. Now here's the mistake most people make, and I understand why they make it, because the wrong answer is psychologically easier. Individual preparation feels like control. The gun in the drawer, the safe in the basement, the 60-day food supply. These are things you can acquire without vulnerability. You do not have to trust anyone. You do not have to have an awkward conversation with your neighbor about what happens if things get bad. You do not have to admit that you cannot handle every scenario alone. Community building requires all of that. It is slow, unglamorous, and it demands a kind of social risk that gear purchases simply do not. And then, April 29th, 1992 arrives, and you find out what individual preparation actually gets you when institutions evaporate. A defensible position you cannot hold alone, information you cannot verify, and a geographic blind spot on every side you are not personally watching. What actually worked in Koreatown was structural, and it was built before the crisis. The Korean-American community had church networks with established communication hierarchies. They had merchant associations with existing relationships across multiple blocks. They had a cultural infrastructure of mutual obligation that predated the riots by decades. None of that was constructed in the 72 hours that mattered. It existed because people had built it, maintained it, and treated it as something real rather than theoretical. This is the part of the video where I am supposed to give you a list of gear. I am not going to do that. I am going to give you the actual high-return work. Map your social infrastructure now, before you need it. Not your preparedness fantasy group, your actual existing network. Who on your block or in your building has medical training? Who has mechanical skills? Who has a vehicle that runs? Who has elderly family members who will require assistance and cannot be factored out of your planning? Identify the skill clusters. Write them down on paper, not in an app. Technology fails. Paper is analog and does not require a network. Establish a communication protocol with at least 3 people that does not depend on cellular infrastructure. Agree on a physical meeting point. Agree on a check-in interval. Have the conversation that makes the relationship real. What are you willing to commit to, and what do you expect in return? Koreatown's merchant associations had already had that conversation. That is why they could activate in hours instead of trying to build consensus while the block burned. Understand your geography. Know which routes are observable, which structures provide cover, which neighbors face which directions. The 1992 defensive posture worked in part because people understood their physical environment at a granular level before the situation demanded it. None of this is exciting. None of it photographs well. It does not generate content. It just works, consistently, across every documented collapse scenario this channel has studied. From the siege of Sarajevo to Hurricane Katrina to the streets of Koreatown in 1992. The pattern is not subtle. In every case where institutional protection disappeared, the people who survived at higher rates were not the people with the most hardware. They were the people who knew their neighbors by name, had already agreed on a plan, and had communication lines that did not depend on infrastructure that collapses exactly when you need it most. You are probably thinking about what you own right now. That is the gap. That is exactly the gap the historical record identifies every single time, in every single collapse this channel covers. And it is the gap that, when the moment arrives, will not be closable in the time you have left.
Welcome to the wasteland, darling, where the jukebox never dies. Just a little music for the journey underneath these endless skies.